Good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Scott, and I'm the Executive Director of SOCAN, and we are here at another Tuesday monthly meeting. We have an exciting event tonight because I'm really happy that the Citizens Utility Board came down from up north to talk with us. There was several pieces of legislation this year I'm sure they'll touch on related transmission and power. It's a hot button issue for our times. But we'll go ahead and jump in with our land acknowledgement. As an organization based in the Rogue Valley, we gather here on the occupied land of the Lagawa, Shasta, and Tequilma people. In the 1850s, tribes were displaced due to the gold rush and colonialization of southern Oregon. This brought war, starvation, genocide, and the erasure of local tribes. In 1853, the Rogue River Treaty was signed, where 3 tribes were forced to cede their land of the upper Rogue Valley and relocate to temporary reservations, the closest one being located at Table Rock. We recognize that we're on stolen land and we will work to protect our community, the climate, and environment for generations. Oregon is home to 9 federally recognized tribes. However, there are many more that do not hold this status. We hope that with this land acknowledgement, you will research the land you reside on, work with us to honor the original caretakers, and to protect our environment and the community in the work we are doing. If you haven't seen this bottom link here, the native-land.ca, fantastic resource that has overlaid maps and historical maps of tribal lands. But my short introduction is over, and we will jump straight to the main event. So I will turn it over to our guest speakers with CUB to tell us all about CUB.
Thank you. We're just going to move these chairs up here.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
All right. So we're here today talk about what CUB does, talk about CUB's wins this year at the legislative session, and the future of our organizing. How many folks here have heard of CUB? Okay, so a fair amount of folks. We are a utility watchdog. And generally fighting to lower utility rates for community members. Can we?
I got it.
Oh, you got the clicker? For sure. So, general presentation covering, our wins, the future campaigns, and how to get involved if you're interested in getting involved. Go ahead.
Oh, introductions?
Next slide.
Sorry. I, just so you know, I went before the Senate Natural Resources Committee today, and I'm a little tired. It was a little rough hearing, and I'm a little slow. Sorry, David.
So, like I said, CUB, we're an independent nonprofit. We've been around for the past 40 years. In those 40 years, we've saved the people of Oregon $10 billion in utility costs.
David, what's your name and what is your title?
My name is David Beltran Barajas. I'm the community organizer.
And I'm Jennifer Hill-Hart. Am I jumping ahead?
I think so.
Okay. To be continued, sorry.
There we are.
There we go.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You want to use this one or that one?
Can you guys hear me with this? Yes. Okay. So very Britney Spearsy or TED Talky here. Jennifer Hill-Hart, Policy and Program Director at Oregon Citizens Utility Board. I have been with CUB for almost 4 years, but in the utility regulatory space for about 10 years, representing clean energy nonprofits, also as counsel to the Montana Public Service Commission. So I've been in this space in a variety of different ways. Super happy to be here, and I'm our lead lobbyist at the legislative session, so I will be giving you an overview of all the good work that we got done this year.
And then my name, David Beltran Barajas. I am the community organizer with CUB, brought on at the start of the year. I'm originally from Nevada, born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. I am an undocumented immigrant, so a lot of my organizing is focused on immigration, climate as it affects community of colors, and working class folks. And before that, I was an iron worker for 11 years, so big switch in careers, but I am tasked with building the organizing structure for CUB. Historically, a lot of organizing has been digital. I want to bring community into our policymaking and have our work be community informed. A lot of my role is talking to community members, calling in about their utility issues, and generally organizing them to help support our work. Next slide. these are our picks. Sorry, this slide is new to me. I think Charlotte added this. Our big impacts, again, we've saved utility customers $10 billion since 1984. Big deal, huge number. Passed legislation holding data centers accountable for their own energy. That's the Power Act. Ended customer-funded subsidies for expanding natural gas pipelines. That is our Avista win. That was fought at the general rate case this year. And then our big goal, having Oregon have 100% clean energy from our utilities. I believe the IOU one's by 2040. And so how do we do this work? We do it through analysis. Do you want to talk? That's
Sure.
more up your lane, yeah.
Yeah. So CUB's team is, well, first of all, we're a membership-based statewide organization, nonprofit. We're completely independent from the state. And we are a small but mighty team. We are comprised of a couple of attorneys, analysts. We've got our organizer and our outreach folks. We have a board that's made up statewide of folks across the state. Our executive director up there, Bob Jenks, has been with CUB for, I think, 35 years, or as he likes to say, longer than some of our staff have been born, or have been alive, excuse me. And we engage and represent ratepayers of the large investor-owned utilities in at least two forums. One with the Public Utility Commission that regulates the large investor-owned utilities, which down here is at Pacific Power.
Pacific Power
and
and Avista.
Avista, okay. And also at the legislature. What we do is when the utilities come in and want rate increases, we intervene in those cases as a party, and we review what they're asking for, and basically make sure what they're asking for is reasonable, and if not, then we're going to fight to keep it out. Especially now because we've had our utility rates increasing by nearly 50%, and at least in natural gas or electricity for folks across the state of Oregon, and that is unacceptable. Really what we try to do, we're in a unique space because we are the utility watchdog. We bring economics to the table, we bring policy to the table. We're also very customer-centered, affordability-focused. So whereas we also support our clean energy policies in Oregon, but we're not so much a climate group as others are. So we get to bring in the numbers and cents and show how the data shows that actually investing in decarbonizing is the best strategy for all of our Oregonians. Next one.
Yeah. I think, okay. So we collaborate with community organizations, CUB members, policymakers, and utilities. My whole goal in my organizing is to build the relationships between community orgs. My whole goal in my organizing is to build and strengthen the relationships between community orgs throughout Oregon, as well as our community members all across Oregon as well. We're based out of Portland, right? But our utilities impact customers throughout the state. So, our goal is collaborating with these folks. Next slide.
Yeah, and we haven't had a community organizer in the past, really. So this is something new because it's very important to us to broaden our reach beyond Portland, and we want to have direct relationships with folks outside of Portland. It's important for us to actually meet and talk with people, so we're really grateful to be here. I could probably kind of clip through these, because I know some folks are pretty familiar with CUB, but here's the work we do, work hard. Why don't we jump over to the Power Act?
Sorry, these slides were a last minute addition, but Jennifer will cover the big ones, which are the Power Act, Fair Energy Act, and our Avista work.
Okay. Do you mind if I'm going to stand? That's what I do. Okay. So this year, CUB carried several energy affordability bills because we've heard from all of you and folks across the state that utility rates are increasing. We've had record disconnections in the state while utilities are making record profits. That's not okay. That doesn't reflect Oregon values. And so CUB worked with partners and great legislators to bring some energy affordability bills. One of the biggest cost drivers, as maybe folks in this room know, of rising electricity rates are data centers coming online. Oregon is a prime location for data centers because of our access to reliable hydropower, moderate climate, and really great tax breaks for data centers. Right now, the cost of bringing those large industries online to the grid is being subsidized by all customers. Which is typically how, we kind of share the cost, share the work, to make sure everyone has energy. But because of the amount of energy these businesses need, and for how long, they're essentially running at peak, at maximum capacity. It's really expensive, and they're going to strain our grid and require investments fairly quickly. So in comes the Power Act. The Power Act was a bill. Chief sponsor, Representative Pam Marsh. And basically what it's saying is like, great, data centers coming to our communities. They need to pay their own way because we can't afford to pay for their electricity, and we shouldn't have to pay for Jeff Bezos' electricity. So we're no longer going to be subsidizing data centers. We're going to track, how much their costs are. Build data centers, and it's basically going to help us have a stronger grid because they're going to have to pay into all the needs that they're going to have. We had over 800 people calling to support or testify to support this bill, and it's very exciting because it's one of the first of the kind in the country. We're currently working with other states right now who are interested in having a similar bill, and it's going to save us billions.
And then real quick, I was talking with Daniel before we started. One of the things as the organizer, right? I was talking with Daniel before we started. I was asking like if data centers is a big, worry or threat here in Southern Oregon. And I guess in terms of land use, it's not as much, right? There's not as much land, so y'all have been able to fight off data centers. The thing. As I talk to community members throughout the state, what I keep bringing up is that because the utilities are monopolies, Pacific Power serves y'all down here. So the data centers that are in Prineville, is that how that's pronounced, Prineville? Mm-hmm. The data centers that are down there are affecting your rates. PG is the biggest data center client in the state, but Pacific customers are also going to be affected by data centers and the rising costs and electricity from them. And then we can go into the next one.
Does anyone have any questions about Power Act?
Did this pass, or this is?
I'm sorry, this did pass.
Yeah.
This did pass, was signed by the governor, and is currently in effect. So it applies to currently new contracts with data centers, but there is a provision that when the existing contracts run out, they're subject to the Power Act as well. Yes?
Who's going to enforce it?
The Public Utility Commission. So part of the process of this implementation piece is that the utilities have to come in and develop a tariff. So they're a special rate class for the data centers, and when they want, and that's what they're going to have to pay based upon, once they do the calculations to figure out, how much they're going to cost the grid, they'll have their own rate that they have to pay, and then PUC enforces it.
So do these large mega users, do they pay the same rates as residential users?
Not right now. Well, no, they will have to, but right now they pay, I don't know if you remember, I think we pay 8 cents a kilowatt, and then they were only paying like 2 cents or something like that. Don't quote me on that, I can get you the numbers, but it's a ridiculous difference. So essentially we are subsidizing them to come on the grid. So now they'll pay a lot more.
And data centers, from what I understand, don't really hire that many people once they're up and running. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure. That's what I've heard, but I don't think I have the understanding enough to answer that. Right? Go ahead. Do you?
I will say I had a conversation over the weekend, a one-on-one with an ironworker with Local 48. No, not ironworker. Electrician with Local 48 IBEW, and based on that conversation, they talk about how it's It's a good amount of work for the short term, a few years. I think he quoted me about 3 years, but it significantly tapers off. And with, depending on the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement with, whatever, company they're working with, there might be more independent contractors for later work. So it is a big spike and then taper off.
Do we know what percentage of the power that's used in Oregon is used by these data centers or it's used?
That's a great question. I actually just read an article in Bloomberg today that says 33% of the electricity generated in Oregon goes to data centers. Now, that's not all IOUs. Umatilla serves a lot of data centers, but that's second to like the data center capital of the country, which is Virginia, and they're 38% of their electricity goes to data centers. So
it's a big percentage.
it's big, and it's only going to get bigger.
IOUs are investor-owned utilities.
Yes, thank you. Investor-owned utilities versus municipal or consumer-owned utilities like co-ops. Thank you.
Gary?
One of the other aspects of the whole issue of data centers is, and this is a national thing, that they recognize that they use a lot of power, and there's a nationwide effort which had its manifestation here in Oregon to essentially develop small-scale nuclear, so that every data center would have its own nuclear power plant. And there was legislation introduced, actually a number of legislations introduced this past session, all of which went down. But I don't think it's going away. In fact, I'm sure it isn't. And so I'm wondering how your organization feels about this relative to the overall grid and social equity particularly.
Yeah.
And how you might strategize about how to counter what is basically a right-wing wet dream.
Do you want to touch on the?
Yeah. Well, I think as you folks know, we can't build nuclear in Oregon right now. So that, I don't know if it's a citizens initiative, and I apologize for not knowing, but that would have to be overturned. But it hasn't become an issue for us in the IOU space specifically yet. Pacific Power is talking about small modular nuclear reactors. Broad level, absent not being able to permitted to do that permissible yet, they're not cost effective from what we understand, and they'll take a long time to build. So they're not going to address the data center need we have because they can come online within 18 months and use the same amount of energy as Eugene. So that's how we're thinking about it. It's on our radar. We also actually was just talking to Columbia Riverkeeper yesterday about their concerns for similar issues, and we're going to, I think, meet David and I in a couple weeks to see what they're thinking about it as well. But it is on our radar.
Yeah.
Tanya?
Yeah, thanks. So it's a similar question though. So we don't have anything on the books though that would prevent Amazon from, essentially creating and deploying their own gas line to like the GTN line and starting their own gas production, right? There's nothing on the books that are you aware of?
I am not aware of that, and if it's not connected to an investor-owned utility, it's outside of our wheelhouse, but I would assume still have to be subject to DEQ air quality regulations,
Yeah.
but subject to check.
Yes. But there's nothing in this bill that addressed any of that?
No,
Like
this is just,
keeping them subject to House Bill 2021 or anything like that?
no, this is if they are connecting to the grid via investor-owned utility, there's going to need to be a rate class that they pay for those costs to connect. I think, Alan?
Yeah, when I testified on this, as I always do when I'm submitting testimony, I pointed out that I'm writing on behalf of 2,000 Southern Oregonians, so you can add 2,000 to that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, we will. Appreciate that. Okay.
I did want to add one more thing.
Yeah, sorry.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh my God,
right?
what am I doing?
There we go. Correct me if I'm wrong. The current data centers that we have at this moment use the same energy load as the city of Ashland, correct? and then the hyperscalers coming down the road for AI, those will be using the same
I believe that's correct.
power load as the city of Eugene.
Yeah.
Correct? So it's like, it is a huge issue. For a long time, our energy, sorry about that, I keep forgetting. It's a huge issue. These data centers that currently exist are using the same amount of energy as the city of Ashland. The ones coming down the road will be using the same amount of energy, specifically hyperscalers for AI will be using the same amount of energy as the city of Eugene. We were making good progress, not only as a state, but as a nation at reducing the amount of energy, right? And the power loads for these data centers are so inflexible and so massive that there is a real threat of rolling back the clock on emissions goals. Oregon, we have our laws, but generally it is something to be aware of that, throughout the country we have data centers like the one in Memphis, Tennessee that are just, spewing out a ton of emissions. Like these things are power hogs that should be looked at and should be, monitored and organized against. Yeah.
So basically, power is not the be-all, end-all, but it's going to help us out a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have the Fair Energy Act, House Bill 3179. This was carried by Chief Sponsor Representative Nathan Sosa, who is a consumer law attorney and who was the chair of the House Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection. We, CUB, along with Verde, Oregon Just Transition Alliance, the Community Energy Project, and other folks have heard from folks like you that bills are skyrocketing, utility profit are making record profits, and that's not okay. Something needs to change. So we introduced the Fair Energy Act, and what this does is it shifts the balance of the scales more towards the customer. So right now under the law, in Oregon laws, and this is utility law, but it specifically states in statute that that the utility, sorry, I'll just wait. The PUC must consider the shareholders' ability to get a return on their investment when they make a decision on a general rate case. Basically, it's set up to where utilities spend money, they get money. Now they need to make certain investments, right? We need to upgrade transmission lines, we need to meet our clean energy goals, but the incentive is to spend money to get money. And CUB comes in, what CUB's role is to say, you don't need to spend all of this, but yes, you do need to replace these lines after, a winter storm or something like that. So what this bill does is puts into statute that when the utility wants to have, when it comes in for a big general rate case, they have to do a cumulative economic impact analysis on the impact on residential customers. So that includes some metrics like what's the number of disconnections, what are the number of reconnections, what is the economic status of the customers in your service territory, based upon consumer, U.S. Department of Labor statistics. I know I didn't get all of that right. But it lays out all these metrics that requires the utilities to do the upfront work to show, yes, okay, here's why your shareholders to get a return on your investment, but here's how this is going to impact people. It includes, it also includes a forward-looking at, well, what are all of your expected rate increases coming down the line? Because right now, we have these big general rate cases, so those are ones you hear in the news, like, Pacific Power got a 10% rate increase, in 2024. But what's hard to track is they have all these, what we call single-issue rate-making mechanisms, and some of them are established by statute, but they're all those little other surcharges you see on your bill. You guys aren't PGE customers, they have like 20 of them. So it took our executive director, Bob Jenks, like a day to figure out what exactly everything was going to. So those are a big part of it, because you can have this general rate case where they're granted a 7% rate increase, but with all those single issue mechanisms, it could add up to 13 or 14%. And that's not okay. And that needs to be considered when we're looking at the big picture of what the utilities are trying to recover. So this bill requires them to be transparent about that and consider it in their application for a rate increase, and it requires the PUC to consider it as well, look at that analysis and do its own analysis and center the customer in these decision making. We also has there's an element in here that says utilities, one of the big problems is utilities have been coming in back to back to back rate increases every year. And that's why it's really hard for people. And the rate increases for Pacific Power are typically, on January 1st. For Vista, they're usually November 1st. Right before the winter, which is both energy sources have the highest bills, which is why we've seen record disconnections in the spring following rate increases. What this bill does is it directs the PUC to create a multi-year rate-making process. So each of these utilities cannot come in for a rate increase they cannot come in more often than every 3 years, and they have to come in at least every 7 years. And so now when you hear me say they have to come in every 7 years, that might be like, why do we want to come in if they don't want to increase rates? But there is the chance after their last rate increase, they may be over-earning what they were allowed by the commission. So it gives the commission a chance to look at what's going on and be like, why aren't you coming in for a rate increase or a rate case? And then with the every 3 years, we're going to have a break. So Avista will only be able to come in once every 3 years. Pacific Power will only be able to come in once every 3 years. And the commission's going to develop a cadence, which is good for CUB and other advocates and the PUC, because our 3 largest utilities, Pacific Power, PGE, and Northwest Natural, will not be able to come in the same year for a rate increase. They're going to be staggered, which is great because last year they all came in, and it was really difficult for everyone. And it makes it harder for us to do our job, and they know that. So this is changing that. One really cool aspect of this bill, another cool aspect, is that there will be no more rate increases in winter, period. They're prohibited from increasing rates from November 1st to March 31st. So customers will have some reprieve in those difficult months of the year when their bills are the highest. And then more transparency. The utilities are going to have to be forthcoming in their filings about what the rate increases are for and how much, in their rate case, because believe it or not, it is like finding a needle in the haystack, trying to figure out what exactly they're asking money for sometimes. And we have to go through like the court type discovery process and dig into questions, and they're evasive, and you have to really fine tune your question, and it takes months. And you've got to file testimony. So now they have to be forthcoming about it. And they have to publish it on their website and have it be public facing for all of us to see what exactly they're asking for and what it's going to. Any questions about FAIR? Yeah, Alan?
That was 2004.
Oh, yes.
When this bill was introduced, didn't it also prevent the utilities from using the funds they were raising for lobbying and advertising?
That was a different bill. That was
Get the junk out of rates.
Get the junk out of
About
rates.
that one, we testified to that.
Yeah, that was a different bill, but similar concept. Are you talking about?
Yeah. The last big one I wanted to cover was the Avista general rate case, specifically because Avista is a IOU down here. What was it? Basically, the rate case was around a large pipe project that Avista was trying to get funding for. We fought against it, talking about getting this pilot program to get willing customers off the gas infrastructure onto electric appliances and equipment. That was going to be the general conversation for this slide. This stuff is a little new too. Our big ones are the no profit margin increases. So Avista's profit margins aren't going up in this rate case. 2.4 million saved. No anti-climate litigation costs. No gas association dues. Then the general cost cut, I believe they were asking for 7%, and we got them down to 3%.
Baby, I don't remember.
Gotcha. I think that's the case. And then the big one would have been this pilot program to get gas customers off the gas system and onto electric appliances. We can't necessarily talk too much about that. I was told by Ryan, but that would have been the big topic of conversation here. So,
But they are developing a project where, like you said, customers will be able, they're incentivizing switching off the gas system.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think right now, the reason we can't talk much about it is because we are still trying to study the costs associated with it. And if it makes sense to actually get that program off the ground. Sorry. The reason we can't talk much about it is because we're trying to figure out, we're doing cost analysis on that program and to see if it would actually make sense to get that off the ground or if there's other areas where we can save costs for customers. Let's go into the next one, unless there's any questions.
You can't talk about it, but can we?
It's public information. It's on our blog, but I can get you more info.
It's not
I
confidential.
wanted to talk about this one
Yeah.
because I got involved in this.
Yeah.
I was amazed when, I think Avista is potentially one of the most evil companies on the planet. But I was amazed when Cara Saylor from the Energy Institute at Lewis and Clark suggested to me that we should be testifying before the PUC on the Avista rate increase and arguing that Avista, instead of replacing the pipes, they should encourage people at the end of the pipes to get off gas and electrify. And I said to Cara, there's no way they're going to do that. That defeats their business model. And so, but we testified in favor of that proposal anyway. And I was just stunned as hell when I learned they had actually agreed to do that.
Additionally, I think the calculus here is that, if I remember correctly, this pipeline project has been going on for the past 10 years, and it's not done. They need more funding for it. The whole argument was that if we invest millions, or I think it was millions, right? Whatever the figure is, that as the gas system begins to shrink, that becomes stranded assets. And the lowest income customers remaining on the gas system will end up carrying more of the burden as that gas system continues to shrink. Additionally, we have to meet Oregon's emission reduction goals. So we saw that as a way to feed two birds with one, hand, right? I took that from Sarah. But I think the calculus makes sense. Again, can't talk about it too much. I was told by our guy Ryan working on this, but I can get y'all more information whenever I get that available.
But it is interesting though, like Avista that is a gas and electric company as well, and they have a smaller, not here, but they do have a smaller service territory here. So they have been, I think, in wanting to wrap up rate cases, they have been more amenable to things like this. But we are excited about this because we're excited to get the data, and I'm sure as maybe some of you folks know, we actually in our analysis there are a lot of folks in Southern Oregon that still rely on electric resistance heating. So part of the work we're trying to do as well is to get them, and that their bills are ridiculous, like $200, $300 a month for folks who really can't afford it. So part of the work and the conversation we're having with them is also, how can we get them transitioned over to more efficient heat pumps?
Was this case before the PUC?
Yes.
Not in the other court, not in the regular courts?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. Yeah. This is when you see general rate case, that's when a utility is coming in asking for that big rate increase for big investments. So this was before the PUC. They ended up getting settlements. To where, like David pointed out, Avista originally asked for 7%, they got it down to 3%. This is a case that happened this year.
When we testified on this, you'd be surprised to learn there was nobody testifying in favor of Avista raising their rate.
Not even
The
good.
testimony that was delivered, like when they had their oral testimony, was SOCAN and Road Climate. And then they went to sleep for 2 hours.
Any other questions about Avista?
I'm sorry?
Any other questions about Avista?
No, I'm okay on that one.
All right. So I'll be talking on these aspects. So again, like I said earlier, my job is building the organizing structure for CUB. I've narrowed in on these 4 campaigns: data centers, telecoms, emissions reductions. and energy affordability. And right there, I touch on where I'm at with each campaign and what phase they're in. Next slide. So with data centers, the priority is enacting the Power Act, making sure that we get that done at the PUC in the way that it was legislated, so we can get ahead of this data center growth and make sure that we're protecting Oregon customers from skyrocketing energy rates. If you've seen the news, it's becoming a larger and larger topic of conversation where people are seeing their energy rates skyrocket. In talking with community members throughout the state, folks are just generally struggling. People are using the same, if not less, energy than they might have been using last year, but being charged more. And ultimately, that's the issue with these rate increases. The other goals are generally providing education and clarity around data centers. This entire time I've been saying the word data centers, but again, as I talked with Daniel earlier, we do want to make the distinction between data centers and hyperscalers, as well as cryptocurrency operations. We need data centers to be able to send out the recording of this presentation, or send out emails, or stream the music we listen to, right? Data centers are something that we need for the digital infrastructure in our life. What we want to be protecting against is AI, hyperscalers, cryptocurrency mining operations that are all waste. So generally providing clarity and education around this. And additionally, my goal is to attempt to build a coalition of community partners and community members that are passionate about protecting and uplifting our needs over those of big tech. So that is the big goals for the data center campaign. Next slide. Emission reductions. This campaign is focused around making sure that we are reaching our 2030 and 2040 emission reduction goals in the state. A lot of this.
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in 15 minutes. I repeat, the library will be closing in 15 minutes.
We don't have to leave.
So a lot of this work will focus on electrification in the state, making sure that we are getting a just transition done. Part of this also is ensuring that data centers are not bucking us from the momentum we have to make those 2030 and 2040 emission goals. And then the last part of this would be help guiding the implementation of that Avista pilot program, and hopefully getting that done with our other gas utilities. Next slide. The third is our CenturyLink/Lumen landline campaign. Weirdly enough, or maybe not weird, a lot of the community interactions I get, calls and emails and folks generally reaching out to CUB, are folks just struggling with their landline. So the whole goal is to hold Lumen accountable for their service interruptions, service disruptions, just general issues that Oregon customers are having with their landline. This campaign actually started from a community member that lives down here in Southern Oregon, Gilles, that tipped me off to this, and I started getting in touch with more community members that were dealing with CenturyLink landline issues, and we're here now. Our neighbor to the north, Washington, had their version of the PUC. It's the Utilities and Transportation Commission? UTC. The UTC has recommended, I believe, $15.5 million in fines for CenturyLink due to their disruptions. Our PUC has recommended...
Nothing yet, but if I have anything to do with it, it's going to be a lot.
Yes. But in
And
general,
I do have a lot to do with it. So.
Yes. So yeah, in general, this campaign is focused around ensuring that frontier and rural communities, as well as communities even in the cities, I get a lot of calls from folks in Portland who have had issues with their landlines, making sure that they're not being ignored while still having to pay what to me feels like an insane amount. Some of these folks are paying like $120 for a landline that doesn't work. Next.
Yeah, so this is, I'm just going to chime in on this one because it's this is my case. I got involved a couple of years ago with Jacksonville area, Little Applegate area, because they had chronic outages for weeks, including during active wildfires. Someone had to call, someone's power was out, or phone was out one day, and then next day, phone was out one day, and the next day their phones were working, which is a good thing because they had to call 911 and get airlifted it out. And they're in that Little Applegate area, so it's very rural. There's no cell service. The company has been in violation of service quality and safety rules for years. The law currently allows them to come up with a plan to say how they're going to get better. And their last rate case, they said, we're going to have this plan and show how we're going to get better. Guess what? It didn't get better. So we currently have some dockets before the PUC where CUB is fighting really hard to hold the companies accountable. The commission has threatened to issue them $50,000 fines for each violation for each day. And I am fighting my hardest to make sure that they get smacked in the face with it, because it's unacceptable. And basically, the issue with landlines, as we all know, is people are moving away from landlines, but we've got folks in rural areas without access to, whose really only other communication option is like Starlink, which is too expensive, and people don't want Starlink sometimes. So we're fighting really hard to try to find a solution because this is a safety issue for folks.
What's the percentage of homes in Oregon that rely on landline and don't have what?
So, yeah, no, it's a great question. I don't know the exact percentage. I know when in 2018, the legislature asked the PUC to look at, how many folks are still using landlines. Is this something that we need to? Do we need to basically transition away from this and remove the company's obligation to serve? Like, are we at a point where that's other communication sources have been saturated in these areas? At that time, there were about 200,000 customers who still really relied on landlines for their sole communication device, and they didn't have cell phone towers, or internet phone. So the legislature and the commission was like, we've got to keep these protections in place for people. In the Lumen case, the commission issued an order on their rate increase last year, and they identified that they have, I think, about 4,000 customers where landline is their only reliable communication device. And I mean, if you really want to dig into it, the FCC has a broadband map, and they're using it for broadband expansion, and it helps identify, where the communication gaps are.
I think the other thing is, all these companies use deferred maintenance purposefully to maintain more money grabs. I mean, Pacific Power was in what's California's? Is it PG?
PG&E.
PG&E
Right.
was,
But they're
Yeah. Oh, my bad.
was essentially putting off maintenance, creating issues with wildfire events and things like that. But then using, not spending that money in regular maintenance, then to ask for more money when they needed to upgrade. And same thing, I bet, with CenturyLink. Deferred maintenance is something that a lot of organizations use just to try to maintain a profit margin when they don't necessarily need to if they have standardized maintenance programs.
Yeah, and I'm like, as I've told the commission, this is a business decision. CenturyLink is Lumen. They have contracts with, Lumen's their parent company. It's actually technically not called CenturyLink anymore, but like in Oregon, it's CenturyTel and United, and I can't even remember all of them. But they also own Quantum Fiber. So they're doing fine. They're just focusing on their fiber. They also, I forget what else I was going to say. But this is a business decision. They're saying, well, we don't have enough customers in the area to send people down. Oh, woe is me. We don't have the capacity, but yet they are putting fiber everywhere, and in areas where it's not needed. So to your point, these are business decisions. And I could talk about it forever, so if you were talking more about it, find me.
And then the energy affordability campaign. The priority there, implementing the Fair Energy Act at the PUC, making sure that it's implemented in the way that we envisioned. And generally, this is the crux of what CUB does, focusing on energy affordability and making sure that Oregon community members can afford their bills. Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong. In 2024, we saw something like 64,000 disconnected households in Oregon, correct?
Directly related, I mean, I don't know if it's the exact number, but roughly around that was directly related to the January 1st rate increases. So like it takes a couple months, you know, when you get behind, and then the disconnections happen in like March and April because people's rates increase 10%, 20% if you add both utilities.
Yeah, so that is a big chunk of CUB's work. Part of that is continuing to expand our disconnection protections and just having fair protections for Oregon community members. One of the things we worked on this summer was our disconnection protections for the summer. Basically making sure that community members cannot be disconnected anytime there is a heat warning, heat advisory, or heat watch. There are a set of protections to keep people protected. I believe it's 2 days prior and then 2 days after. And as we continue to see rising heat in Oregon, longer heat waves, these protections are vital. And so we're working to get permanent protections, I think by this year or next year?
Yeah, by next year.
By next year. What else? And and then improving the bill discount programs, making sure they're serving more community members. These are critical to making sure that we avoid disconnections. But yeah, this is the fourth campaign, focusing on continuing to make energy more affordable for our Oregon community members.
And I'll just throw into, right now, it's on October 14th, the commission is going to consider whether or not to extend disconnection protections to folks who have been disconnected because of around wildfire. So right now the staff, PUC staff is not agreeing with us. We believe if you know, folks are disconnected, it's for people who are disconnected for non-payment. If we're in an active wildfire situation, they should be able to have their power turned on, of course, until, you know, the utility has to shut it off in case there's a wildfire risk, but they need their power to know if they need to evacuate. So they should be reconnected in that temporary time, so that way we can save lives. We have gotten pushback from PUC staff has recommended that they not adopt those rules at this time. We are going to push back incredibly hard, and if that's something you would like to know more about and weigh in on, you know, please talk to David or I, because in my opinion, there's no reason why they can't add that to their already existing disconnection work that they're doing.
The next. Okay, so the last slide. I think the final slide was a Q&A, but we've been doing Q&A in between. Yeah, so getting involved. None of these protections and policy gets done without it being community informed and the backing from community members. So if you would like to get involved, what we're looking for is landline service stories, getting those stories from community members that have been struggling with their landlines, have seen, in some cases from folks I've talked to, disconnections for a month long. Disconnection experiences. So if you yourself or your community members, family has dealt with a disconnection, whether it's, you know, from winter, you know, bills going crazy, or, you know, these extended heat waves causing bills to raise, you know, in the summers, we need those stories to help back up our testimonies and our work. And then finally, switching from electric heating, basically stories to help with the Avista pilot program, basically getting success stories from folks that have switched from gas to electric, folks who have positive experiences, or in general are just trying to fight to have, you know, reduce our emissions and you know, contribute to you know, the energy transition. The final one I added in there is worries about data centers. So that data centers is the most popular topic that I talk to with community members. It is just in the zeitgeist, and folks are worried about this issue in many areas, whether it's water, land use, privacy, or energy. Yeah, if you have worries about data centers, reach out and let's chat about it. And I think the last one is Q&A. So if you have any more questions, feel free to ask.
I was hoping you could speak to Senate Bill 688 from the last session.
Yeah, happy to. Senate Bill 688 is a performance-based regulation bill. and is a bill CUB supported. I mentioned multi-year rate planning earlier. That's a form of performance-based regulation. And it basically what it does, it creates a system to where it shifts the rate-making process from spend money to make money to incentivizing or disincentivizing and penalizing utilities for certain actions. So this will be developed as part of an implementation process at the PUC starting this fall. But basically what you can do is say, okay, utility will get a rate increase, this amount of rate increase if they reduce their disconnections by this amount. If they are exceeding the requirements for clean energy goals, or if they're not meeting them, technically, they could be penalized. So it's just being a little more, giving a little more teeth to getting the utilities to do what's right for customers, and it's a more customer-centered way of doing rate making. Any other follow-ups?
You might have to be diplomatic with it, but it seemed like it was just another, okay, spend a couple of years making a framework. A couple of years from now, we'll have to have another conversation about your framework. How big are the teeth, I suppose?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'm someone who's always happy to not have a study bill all the time, especially at the PUC, because we've had a lot of bills. But, and to your point, the PUC can technically already implement, we call it PBR, but performance-based regulation, and they do in some capacity. But the PUC is very interested in this, and it ties in really well with FAIR. So it's going to be part of this implementation process that we are moving through fairly quickly because of the weight of all the changes that the FAIR Act is making. So, and I guarantee you, lots of advocates are very interested in this. But I do appreciate that. But since it ties in with FAIR so well, it made it appealing for both of them to pass. Yeah.
How effective is the PUC? Is it a good agency, good commission?
Speaking of diplomacy, the PUC has to make decisions that are in the public interest. And we have, right now, a little shift in leadership at the PUC. They've got a new executive director, we've got new commissioners. And what I've noticed is that, including with new Commissioner Power, they're really interested in making the space more community-centered. There have been some speed bumps, participating in agency decision-making is a nightmare just saying it. So they're trying to make it, more accessible. So I do appreciate that. I will reference a couple of cases. So let's see, we had PGE came in for its 5th rate case in 5 years, the beginning of, in 2023. CUB asked the commission to move to dismiss the case. Be like, come on, they've been coming in back to back to back. People can't afford this. This is after winter storms. This is after the heat domes. It's just really expensive for customers. And we were denied. We weren't happy about that. But at the end of the day, the commission actually gave PGE a lower return on equity than they had before they filed the rate case. So that's a good thing, because that's signaling in itself. And they certainly weren't happy about that. And I believe they've appealed the case. Northwest Natural, same year, the commission found that they overspent $13 million, I believe, on line extension allowances, and also directed the company to phase out their line extension allowance policy, which is a good thing. But now Northwest Natural is appealing it. So I think, if they're getting sued, that means they're doing good things probably, but do I think we could be a little more, customer friendly? Like, for example, the wildfire disconnections, of course, but that's CUB's role. We advocate for customers. We have to push them, and they have to balance the utilities' interests as well. So, but I do think, we make things change for the better for the PUC.
So do you guys depend on donations to fund the CUB?
Partially, yes. You are more than welcome to become a member of CUB. you just have to, it's only, you can pay $5, would love $5,000. But it's a membership-based organization, but we also, since we were established by Citizens Initiative, that part of that process created it so that we get, you pay a little bit of charge on your investor-owned utility bill, and that goes towards CUB. We just have to match those fundings with grants and generous donations from folks like you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Yeah.
I was just wondering if, it didn't sound like it was anything that you were talking about in your presentation thus far. I'm wondering how much consideration you're giving to community solar projects, and particularly in places where there's, disadvantaged communities, for example, as a way of not only moving us in the direction we need to go, but providing an alternate method to being married to those organizations.
Yep, no, it's a great question. We don't typically engage in community solar spaces that much. We're really focused on the big investments. Partially, while we're all believe in clean energy and climate change, as the economic advocate with community solar projects, you're asking everyone to pay in for a system that only benefits certain folks. Now, when it's environmental justice communities, that's even better, and we absolutely believe those projects should be supported. And honestly, we're even thinking more about how more distributed systems and more microgrid kind of type systems are something maybe we should look into more, especially when we're talking about wildfire and wildfire resiliency, because traditionally it's the big projects that are more affordable for customers all across the board and spread the benefits all across the board. So it's been difficult for us to come in and justify that, but I think there's a lot of conversation to be had about projects like that when we're talking about capacity needs and wildfire resiliency.
I think one way to consider it is because if you expand the range of your consideration of the risk-benefit analysis, the risk-benefit analysis of dispersing the grid and the source for it, as well as making a more resilient structure ultimately, is something that needs to be, in my view, incorporated into a forward-looking strategy for how we get from where we are to where we need to be.
I will say, separate from the program team as part of the outreach team and the community organizer, the community members that are part of this campaign are actually very interested in community solar. So that is something I've been talking with the folks that I'm working with on basically getting involved in this campaign, having this be community informed again. So it is something that is on my mind. Again, just as the organizer, I don't know what how implementation would look, but that is something that, conversations I'm having with folks, specifically in Portland, as well as conversations around, resiliency around batteries and, in general, just what does electrification and emissions reduction look like, and what are campaign goals that are tangible that we can set to make that happen. Again, though, I don't know what that would look like, on the program side, so I don't want to speak to that. But it is something that I hear a lot from community members, and I'm factoring into the work I'm doing on that campaign, the emission reductions campaign.
Does Ashland still have their own utility?
What was that?
Does Ashland, as a city?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you study the difference between, when I looked at it, their rates were significantly cheaper, and I'm sure they probably served their customers because it was more localized. And a broader question to you, is the cost of producing electricity going up? Because I don't think so. I think the cost of energy generation should be declining. It's more of the transmission costs and maintenance that all these companies use to. I mean, it's just like the Blue Sky programs. They charge you more to get electricity from clean sources, and which always kind of just like, okay, I understand that, you're funding these programs, but is the cost of producing electricity going up in this country?
So in Oregon, we've traditionally had some of the lowest rates in the country. Power costs can fluctuate, and really the problem we run into with electricity is when we need more firm power during peak times. The biggest drivers of electricity rate increases are wildfire mitigation and restoration. This is not liability. We haven't dug into the Pacific Power lawsuit, other general rate cases yet. They've not asked for that yet. Also, transmission upgrades. The timing is terrible, but they haven't been as invested in as they need to be. And the data center needs is a new thing that's popped up since the last 5 years. It's threatening, our ability to meet our energy goals, but hence the Power Act to try to get them to pay for it. So a variety of factors, but natural gas power costs can fluctuate as well. So, but it is a lot of this infrastructure.
So data centers as a group, I haven't heard that they are required to produce as much renewable energy with storage capabilities or to repurpose the heat tremendous amount of heat. You've been in any server room, tremendous amount of heat and the cooling that goes along with that. So there's probably very little requirement that they utilize those things. That would be a condition that I think would be a requirement. I mean, just to say solar isn't effective anymore with newer battery storage technologies or hydrogen storage technologies is not, it no longer flies. They're just looking to pay, 2 cents versus 8 or whatever, and not have to do anything more. And quite honestly, I want to know does anybody in this room really need AI? I'm serious.
No.
There's one.
Yeah.
He thinks so.
I look up, I do Google. Google's giving me an AI response, which basically undercuts all of their paying customers. Think about that. They're willing to sacrifice.
But you can't get away from it.
I know, they're pushing it out because they figure it's more important. But I don't need funny generated videos that presidents use to attack their foes. I mean, AI, for scientific purposes, I think it has tremendous possibilities. But and I hope Oregon as a whole is more realistic about data centers initially because of the hydropower we had and water for cooling. I know it was a big thing in Hood River and Prineville and some other places, but I don't, Dalles, yeah, but I don't think that the benefit, because like I say, I know that they don't hire, the staffing thing is not as much as people would think. They promise these jobs and it just, they don't come to fruition.
I think you're absolutely right. I think again, the way I put it is, I feel like data centers are an amalgamation of a ton of social threats that our communities have been facing throughout the years, all mixed up in one, and they're being heralded by tech billionaires that feel like they can do whatever they want. IOUs, the major utilities, they don't get a say on who they serve, right? If a data center wants to move into Pacific Power territory, they have to be served. So that's why part of the campaign is focusing on ways that we can mitigate data center growth, specifically the desires of these tech billionaires, big tech. They want to do whatever they'd like. How can we best mitigate that in a way that protects and uplifts our community needs and protects our environment and our water and our privacy?
They were just required to put solar panels on those huge buildings they're building. They can generate a lot.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of power.
Yeah. Oh,
It looks like we're wrapping up, but I'll take the one last question.
I'm just trying to talk to you about the hour.
One thing we could do though is maybe make a distinction about who gets those tax credits, right? Between data centers and super, hyper. But anyway, I saw your testimony today in front of the Senate committee. And I will say, I just want to throw this out, everybody. I think, and it's related to the question about how effective is the PUC. PUC, at least the Chair Tani, is really concerned about Pacific Core going bankrupt. I mean, this is a big issue. And in fact, you mentioned that as a possibility in front of the hearing today. And I saw the other panel member, which was the guy who is the attorney for the litigants in the wildfire case against PAC, and a the Trial Attorneys Association of Oregon, he was like completely poo-pooing the idea about Pacific Corp going bankrupt. So I also saw, I was like wishing that Senator Golden had asked you to respond to that, because
Yeah,
it
you
looked
know.
like you wanted to, but I mean, is this a real concern? I mean, why is it potentially gonna drag us down on, really getting some good responses on wildfire? Because I know CUB's position is the shareholders need to pay for it, right, the suit. But it's just a huge conundrum, I feel like, right now. And it's gonna affect us, because we're in PAC territory.
Taking off my glasses, Tanya.
Yeah.
It's so tough to explain because we were asked to speak before the Senate Natural Resources and Wildfire Committee today on why CUB essentially was opposed to some of the wildfire bills that came last session, trying to really force Pacific Power to pay the outstanding judgments they have. CUB has no problem with that. We believe if the company has been negligent, let alone grossly negligent and reckless, like Pacific Power was found, those are not prudently incurred costs, and those should be paid. I mean, they should pay them. And I think it's important that this appellate process is going on and all these people are not getting the justice they deserve. I know people have passed away while they're waiting for this appellate process, and from what I understand, it's been an awful, awful experience, as you can imagine. There were some bills brought last session that were basically setting it up to where electric IO industry, like Pacific Power, for example, since they're the one we're talking about here, if they have an outstanding judgment owed to litigants, they cannot essentially get any profits until they pay that judgment. There was a provision in the bill that said ratepayers do not have to pay for anything related to the case if it's grossly negligent or higher. But this piece that said they can't get any profits without until they pay the judgment is unfortunately problematic when you get down to the nuances of rate making, because utility investments are like a mortgage. They have equity and then they have debt. The equity comes from the shareholders and the debt comes from the lenders. The more equity you have, the less debt you have, the less riskier the investment is. If they can't issue stocks or sell shares, then there's no equity. So then all they're left with is borrowing with a loan based upon whatever the rate is. The rate's going to be higher because we don't have this equity. Just like if you bought a home, you're going to be paying more on the loan and most likely a higher interest rate. And that's problematic for ratepayers because utilities, we're going to have to pay for it. So whatever those necessary investments are, like transmission upgrades, it's not going to be as affordable as it would be if we had the equity investments, and they won't be able to do as much as they can. And they're going to have to start to prioritize. How do we focus on making our decarbonization goals? How do we focus on reliability? How do we, how much do we put towards wildfire mitigation? So it puts them in this really, really tough spot. We are very concerned they go into bankruptcy. And I know part of the conversation today, it's hard for, how do you wrap your head around like Pacific Power is owned by Berkshire Hathaway,
That's what he said.
who's run, or whatever, was run, he's still around by Warren Buffett, one of the richest people, disgustingly richest people in the world. But it isn't that simple. Like the way these utilities have organized their corporate structure is it's not easy to get up to that gajillionaire money in order to, pay these judgments. They set up structures to where it's not that simple. So while common sense, yes, you're like, they should pay it. And he has plenty of money, so he should pay it. But people are billionaires for reasons. So it was really tough to have that conversation, but I have to be candid about it, because if they can't get shareholder investment, it's going to be really hard for them to borrow, and if they can't borrow, they might go bankrupt. And we can look at what happened with PG&E in California when that utility went bankrupt and how it impacted customers. Customers are not a rate class. I'm not a bankruptcy expert. From what I've read, customers are not a rate class in a bankruptcy proceeding, so you don't have any right to recover anything. It'll slow every investment because their assets are going to be frozen. And in that case, the litigants that sued them and won a judgment ended up having to settle, where they got, I think, at least half of their judgment and money, and the other half in shares in the company. I don't want that to happen here, you know? So like my conversation today was like, we need to find a solution that gets these people justice, but also keeps the power on. And there are options for public power. Like people have been talking about it. Several years ago, I think it was PGE around the Enron situation, you know, there was conversations about maybe what if PGE went bankrupt. So there is a statute in Oregon, the Oregon Community Power Statute, which can help guide a process for transitioning a IOU to a publicly owned utility, but that would take a long time. So you have to think about that, and it would be costly, and it would create a process where we wouldn't be able to make as many investments as we want. So it's just not that simple, and I wish I had the right answer, but yeah.
Thanks for talking about it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think it's like, it's a big issue.
Yeah, and I wanted to respond, but I think it was,
I know you did.
yeah.
I
I was just
figured I'd
like,
add you to it now.
thanks. Yeah, but it's tough, and I don't like being up there saying we can't do what they want to do, but we have to look out for everyone, and I don't want to end up that ratepayers, including the ones who are survivors of the wildfires, are paying for what the utility has done. We're going to fight for that not to happen.
Perfect. We have a few more SOCAN slides. Can we get a round of applause for our
Yay.
Real quick, Gary, earlier you mentioned microgrids. Rumble on the River is a community forum in Portland. The next one coming up on October 10th, I believe, is around microgrids. So I could get connected with Daniel or Kathy and see if I could get the recording for that if you would like it and other community members would like it.
Yeah, make sure, send that link to SOCAN.
For sure. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you much. Got a few more slides to get through with the last 10 minutes. I lost the clicker. Our next and last general meeting from the year is next month in October, and we're bringing in Dr. Bill Gorham, who is also on our board, to talk about ocean acidification. He currently holds the record of highest number of YouTube video views on our YouTube channel right now when he gave a presentation last July. So don't miss this next one because Bill is a fantastic speaker. Follow us on social media, do the like, do the subscribe, do the share, help fill these seats for our next presentation. Save the date. Alan let me use this photo, so he can't say anything about it. But our fall fundraiser is coming up in November 13th. We're going to host it on a Thursday this year. We have secured Mountaintop Sound as our band. Representative Marsh will come in as one of the keynotes. We think we have one more keynote that we're waiting to confirm. But it's a night of celebration. It'll be our second annual Sips for Sustainability. We have already secured more wine than an army could probably drink in a night, but we're gonna give it a good shot. So please come and join us. It'll be at the Ashland Elks Lodge, and there's information on the SOCAN website. For the federal and state project, we're already starting to have some conversations about the 2026 short session. Alan and I sat with Senator Golden during a conference last week and started to have a little bit of initial conversations to see where we go. 2026 is going to be probably more fun than 2025 was, and I think we all know how 2025 has turned out. And the back counter, we have a few more spots for volunteers to come and join us at the Harvest Festival on Saturday. Saturday is a very busy day. It is also Southern Oregon Pride, but you can do that in the morning in Ashland and then come and join us at the Harvest Festival. So we need a few more volunteers if you know someone that wants to come and hang out with us. If you haven't seen the new website, I spent a lot of time making sure there's no more bugs, and if you find one, please tell me. But same website link, socan.eco, but a whole new design. There's tons of new content on there, so peruse at your leisure. All of our events can be found on the SOCAN event calendar on the website. Sustaining Climate Activists will be held in the Talent Public Library in October, now that it's too cold to be out in Blue Heron Park. I am giving a lecture on October 21st on a paper that I wrote entitled The 6 Faces of Climate Denial. Those of you that don't know, I'm a philosopher, and so I am trying to deconstruct the identity of climate change deniers and position it more as a position that we can have a discussion about. I'm not going to be ripping on climate denial for an hour and a half. I'm hoping to give us language to have better conversations. It'll be at the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library on the 21st from 7 to 9, and a recording will be available usually about 2 days afterward. A few partner events. There's only 2 more Wednesdays of the Applegate Evening Market. They've been really well attended this year. Our friends at the Jackson County Library are always out there, and there's some really great vendors. Go support a Greater Applegate. Southern Oregon Land Conservancy is having an Open Lands Day, so they only have, I didn't change the name. Ignore Trek to the Fern. That should say Open Lands. Their Rogue River Preserve is only open usually twice or 3 times a year. So if you want to see some of the lands that they preserve, the next Open Lands Day is Saturday, October 25th. And then First Friday is this Friday. Both the Ashland Climate Collaborative and KS Wild are having events in Ashland if you'd like to make the long, arduous trek from Medford to Ashland. And then check out our friends at the Rogue Valley Voice for their calendar and newsletter. The newest edition just came out the other day. And always, we are also a little nonprofit that accepts donations. So, we're maybe not as cool as CUB, but we're still pretty cool. So we appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. The recording should be up in a few days. And enjoy your, I almost said Friday evening, Tuesday evening. And we'll see you all next time.